everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Chivian Tech Vision. With me today is the delectable Dr. Agu Collins. Agu. You are the CEO and Chief Digital Architect of TD for PAI IoT Hub, Nigeria, and the Pioneer Director of the Research and Development Department of NITDA. With extensive hands-on industry expertise, you specialize in developing IoT systems, advanced embedded systems, PCB design, SCADA and HMI systems, and renewable energy integration. Your career includes significant roles at NIGCOMSAT and the Obasanjo Space Center, where you established the Research and Development Department. You've been instrumental in developing indigenous innovative products, such as the Obuno IoT engine, Amadioha IoT platform, the Unity board, and several RFID-based systems, including biometric e-voting and staff attendance solutions for various Nigerian institutions. Born at Akpugba, Enugu State, you excelled academically, achieving several distinctions in your WAEC and GCE at the Federal Government College, Idomi. You then received a federal scholarship to study at the Soviet Union, earning your BSc and MSc degrees in mechanical engineering and a PhD in engineering sciences from the National Technical University, Kharkov City, Ukraine. Your doctoral research yielded a potential hydrocarbon-based solid substance for processing materials. Impressive. In your professional journey, you have held positions such as the design engineer at the Kharkov Electrotechnical Equipment Plant and the general manager at Ajokuta Steel Company. In 2008, you joined the Federal Civil Service, advancing to roles such as the Assistant General Manager at NIGCOMSAT and Director of IT Infrastructure Solutions at NITDA. You have contributed to national projects like the National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan and the National Economic Council's Ad Hoc Committee on Crude Oil Theft Prevention and Control. Your contributions have earned you numerous accolades, including being named one of the 100 leading telecom and ICT personalities in Nigeria at ATCON and induction into the Nigerian Diaspora Global Hall of Fame by the NIDOE. You are affiliated with professional bodies such as the Nigerian Society of Engineers, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and the Institute of Software Practitioners of Nigeria. Additionally, you are the facilitator at the National Open University of Nigeria and a mentor at a non-profit IoT hub. You are dedicated to capacity development in emerging technologies, fostering international collaboration and enhancing the link between industry and academia. You are married and you have a son. Dr. Agu, it's a big pleasure to have you on Chivian Tech Vision platform today.
Thank you so much, Vivian.
Yes.
I deeply appreciate it.
Yes. I think my very first interaction with you was in the committee where we're still serving currently at the committee, the Smart Hub Committee. And I think hearing your own contributions to our initial plannings and all that got me to this man knows his onions. This is somebody I should interact with. So you are highly welcome.
Thank you so much.
I want you to briefly tell us about yourself and especially, your work at the TD for PAI IoT Hub.
Okay, thank you very, very much. How do I put it now? Well, I have to mention that I have come a very, very long way, starting from my childhood. And from childhood, I already had a passion for technology. And the first spark was created by my dad.
Wow.
My dad is still alive, so he's a professor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, former Deputy Vice Chancellor of Enugu State University.
Oh, wow.
So being a federal civil servant, we were in Ogoja then as a child. Ogoja was still in Cross River State because that's where I actually started my primary school. So one day my dad called me to a table. He brought a table knife, brought a fork, and then brought battery and bulb. So he put the negative part of the battery on the table knife, then put a bulb at the positive end.
Yes.
They used the fork to make a circuit, and that was magic. I was never
and the light
again.
came up, yes.
Absolutely. And that was one of the reasons why I left electrical electronics engineering to study mechanical.
Oh, wow.
Because naturally I already had that in me.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you everything. So I've worked for the government. Went to Soviet Union on a federal government scholarship. I went to Federal Government College Iduani.
Yes.
So I'm a pro-unitate. Basically, yes. So from Iduani, I made distinction in my work. I had over I have about 7 A's.
Wow.
That they landed me federal government scholarship to Soviet Union, where I studied mechanical engineering to BSc, MSc, up to the PhD. And then my PhD yielded, I solved an engineering problem, a big one, during my PhD.
With your research?
Yeah, with my research. I acquired a European patent with respect to that.
Oh, really? Wow.
I must mention that I'm the first Black in my institution. That's been existing over 100 and something years.
Yes, as of when you, to have that patent.
Yeah, it's online. You can check all those ones.
Wow.
Okay? Yes. And, I worked for the government, started working for the government large ComSat, Nigeria Communications Satellite Limited, came in there where I established the R&D department that later metamorphosed into Microelectronics Center. And then on a special request, I was seconded to NIDA, National IT Development Agency. And the primary reason was to help NIDA develop what they call the upstream ICT. Oh, wow. Upstream is where the hardware comes in, embedded
which is really lacking.
Chip design, and so on and so forth, because I have a very big experience based on my activities in Ukraine, where I worked as a design engineer. The design bureaus are where is actually the brain of most factory. Before coming down to Nigeria to work in Ajokuta Steel under Reprom Limited. And I must point out, very, very important, it was during our tenure in Ajokuta Steel, that was it 2005 or 6? That under Reprom, which I later headed as general manager, that was when that steel plant was reactivated.
Really?
For the first time after 15 years of redundancy, the light section mill was activated, the wire rod mill was activated, and then we increased the output of the furnace, reheating furnace, by 30%.
Wow.
Yeah, with some of my colleagues, because I also do industrial automation. I program PLCs and what have you. Well, just to cut it short, it's quite an experience.
Wow.
And then I retired last year from NIDA as a Pioneer Director of Research and Development, which I'm very, very proud of, because I personally moved for the creation of that very department, defended it, and then luckily the board approved it. So I have to keep
such an agency.
I'm the Pioneer
I'm surprised
Director.
you didn't have that before you came
Absolutely,
in. Research
very,
and development.
Very, very, very strange, because you're talking about innovation. Without R&D, you can't have innovation. R&D drives innovation. That is why the likes like Kodak, you don't see the films anymore. You don't see typewriter, because there's a lot of disruptions happening.
Were you also a part of the robotics center that was created, or was it created after you left?
No,
the artificial intelligence and robotics center.
The NCAS center was created when I was still in NIDA.
Okay.
Yeah, and during that period, I think it was not that. I know it was a battle between Ministry of Science and Technology and the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. Coincidentally, that very period, a board was launched, which I championed, with contribution by the then minister, Professor Salih Ibrahim Pantami, and this board is called Unity Board. It's an AI IoT STEAM education kit.
Okay.
So it was supported by NIDA, and NIDA is still under the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy.
Yeah.
Personally, I believe that added to why NIDA actually won the battle, to have the National Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics.
Oh, interesting.
Because the Ministry of Science and Technology, they were arguing that this should be their mandate. I believe that, it's actually a cross-cutting mandate between the two agencies, but then overtaking is allowed. That's we are told.
Okay, not to stray a bit, but, the Ministry of Science and Technology, in your time in NIDA and your experience with NIDA, did you guys have a lot of collaboration? Because I see it's very, when we talk of innovation in Nigeria, we talk of technology innovation, the Ministry of Science and Technology is not really mentioned, or is not at the forefront. It's always NIDA, I hear. It's always NIGCOMSAT. And why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, I concur with what you have said, because I have to be brutally honest in this very interview, and especially when I have left the government. Yeah. And I believe that if we don't speak the truth or tell the way it is, we won't be able to solve this problem. We'll be in a vicious loop of deceiving ourselves and what have you. I believe strongly that there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to innovation and performance of all the whole federal ministries as a whole. But then I will also put that responsibility on the people that are in charge of approving the budget, people that carry out oversight functions where they are not asking certain questions that should be asked. For example, you budgeted for X amount of money to do so and so, to like maybe carry out research in some of those areas that will benefit the country. The second, you come in with another budget What have you done with the previous money?
Previous one.
Give me a breakdown before I could give you the next one. I feel that people are not asking the right questions, and that is why some of these things are not moving. Then because if you're asking the right questions, some of these things will go for commercialization. Then the nation will feel that impact. Now, coming to Minister of Science and Technology, the correct name is actually Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology. It's a very big ministry with a lot of parastatals under it.
Naseni and Co.
Yeah, so I wouldn't want to blame the ministry because the minister himself may not be the one in charge of appointing the head of parastatals. Recall that fish starts to rot from the head. So if you don't put the right people there with the vision, one thing is to make appointment, but do you have people with the vision, to drive the mandate of those very, how do I put it now, strategic institutions? Like under the ministry, we have, we used to have, because I had that NASENI, National Agency for Science, Engineering, Infrastructure, so it's moved back to under the presidency. I know before it used to go under the Federal Minister of Innovations and Technology. Such agencies is very, very strategic, to be solving some of our problems. Other NASENI, we have LD. LD is very, when we talk of AI, I think LD should also be championing, looking in that direction. LD is the Electronic Development Institute, located in Oka. To me, I feel that they should also up their game. There's a lot that has to be done. So I concur with what you're saying, that a lot has to be done, not only science and technology, generally. So the big question is, okay, how many patents did Nigeria, advertise or create every year? How many products have we created? Have we commercialized it? And most importantly, what is the level of adoption of such product by the government? Because it's also, I'll talk about that later. It's also a very big challenge when local solutions
why we're here,
and technologies are created. How is the government adopted? Okay, how many of innocent vehicles are being used today by the government? Why are we still procuring foreign vehicles? And we're talking that we have economic crisis and what have you.
All that.
So these are some questions that actually, is beyond me sometimes. It's quite bizarre.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So let me bring us back. So tell me more about the IoT Hub, the TD for PAI.
Okay, fine. It's a long history that started from NACHCOMSAT. I resumed at NACHCOMSAT 2008, February 1st.
Yes.
And also kind of an accidental civil servant. So I will join Rufai in his book because I never planned in my life to work for the government. My dad was a hardcore civil servant. And I knew when there were being low salaries before I traveled to Soviet Union, I swore I know the horror we went through.
Yes.
So government wasn't in my mind, absolutely. So it was an accidental situation. I never came back to Nigeria to look for a job. Now, there was this strategic organization created during Obasanjo's regime, NIDO, Nigerians in Diaspora Organization. So I was representing Ukraine in engineering and infrastructure. So our job was to come and talk about technology that could assist Nigeria in moving to the next level. So I made a presentation on a solar power street light. We're talking back as far back as maybe 2006, 7. Yeah. We didn't have them everywhere, but we made a presentation that, and that's why some guys that were still talking with the NACHCOMSAT about how to power their ground station using solar panels and what have you. So that's how they brought me to NACHCOMSAT.
Wow.
That was my first time. And then I had I still call my best CEO, Timasani Ahmed Rufai, is the best CEO I've had so far. And I believe that the government should look for him and see where to actually put him in. Where can
he was at NACHCOMSAT
when he was the MD CEO of NACHCOMSAT. He was actually the one that discovered me, made me to stay behind in Nigeria to serve. Mind you, he's a Muslim, he's from Kogi State. I'm an Igbo, I'm a Christian. That never mattered to him. Because they're looking for the talent, for national, benefits. So we need more people in the system. So from NACHCOMSAT, a couple of interviews happened. Maybe I don't want to go deep. And I wasn't happy when the interview how the outcome was handled. People I thought could have gotten the job never got the job.
Got there.
Let's not go deep into that anyway. So I was really touched. So that pushed me into asking the question, okay, what happens to these young people that are talented? They have the raw ingredients one can polish. They're like raw gems that can be turned into diamonds. So that prompted me to get a land in Kuje. Kuje is just by Kuje Area Council, by the way, is the biggest area council. So I started building organically a gathering point for them. Then I was teaching them embedded programming. Which I started right from time, teaching them printed circuit board design and fabrication. And that led to the building of the first, four rooms there, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at, let me just fast forward because of time. Then if you look at IoT is one of the pillars of the fourth industrial revolution.
Of course.
So what I did in Kuje was that I was laying the foundation where they can get the foundational knowledge to make them be players in IoT. Because that very period, IoT was not at the front burner. But the embedded program had been there, automation had been there, and so on and so forth. So that was how, we laid that foundation. And then IoT being one of the pillars of the fourth industrial revolution, we saw it as a strategic technology. Why? Because if you look at it closely, you can see the forces that make it up: computation, control, connectivity, and cloud. Your cloud is your database, your connectivity is your networking, your control is embedded programming, and then the other one is your software development. So you can see all the realms of IT falls under the IoT. Meaning that once you build capacity in IoT, the person becomes a multi-purpose individual. It opens more opportunities for them.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to focus on that. Then secondly, if you look at what they call the SDGs, there are 17 in number. There are Sustainable Development Goals under
by the
United
UN.
Nations.
Yes.
Yeah. So that has actually coined the problem.
So I guess you guys will be attending to the one of economic development, or which of the goals are you aligned with?
We are aligned to many of the goals, to be frank, because most of them are technology driven. If you look at them, if you talk about water and sanitation, if you're talking of
correct, because you are solving a lot of problems.
You're talking of food security.
Yes.
You're talking of life underwater, life above land.
Above water, the environment,
Everything is technology driven. So you need to apply technology to achieve most of them.
Okay.
So that became our focal point. And then the first one was good education. How do we build the industry sought after skills in young people? That's they started building those capacity in the pillars of IoT. In TD for Pi Hub. We used to call it before TD for Pi Hub. But because of the strategic nature of the hub, it's one of the only hubs across Nigeria that is in the rural area. It is a community hub. In line with the philosophy of bridging the diversity gaps, and also what they call digital inclusion philosophy. So we build the hub organically there as an NGO, mind you. We don't charge for trainings
we train
so many people. And most important, I must point out, it's one of the only innovation hubs in Nigeria that has accommodation. So we have dormitories built in there.
So you have workstations and all that.
Yeah, people live in there. They come to work. We train them. So it's an engine room. So you work, live, and play everything. So you have a very, very high concentration over there. So I built a lot of people in those areas. We developed many products. The Unity board, which I'll talk about, was actually designed
there.
Yes, and manufactured in Kuje. Yes, Kuje area council. Absolutely, yeah. And there's so many other things we do. We do it in the home, and I believe that. Today we'll talk about AI, artificial intelligence. Is one of those buzzwords used everywhere. But we have to understand that there are three primary drivers of AI. The first is what they call robust and reliable data sets, because in computer science, it's garbage in, garbage out. The number two is what they call algorithm. Algorithm is actually where
how can you use
then the third one is what they call robust computing platform. That is where the hardware comes in,
cloud and all that.
That again underlines the importance of hardware and underlines the importance of what they call the upstream ICT, because without the hardware being developed, you cannot run software.
That is why it's so interesting. This is why, sorry to cut you, this is why NVIDIA is now like the highest trading company.
With their GPUs.
With their GPUs. Yes. Because all the companies that are bringing up these AI platforms and AI solutions are working with that infrastructure.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is very key.
Very, 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 very important, because there have always been that argument in the past. I remember the Oracle of IT in Nigeria, Chris Owaje. We always argue which is more important. Is it the software or the hardware? But I have to point out to people, okay, when you talk about computing, one of the first computing started with the abacus. Those things you make. And then if you go back, why do we count in base 10 naturally? Because we have 10 digits. This is hardware counting now. I get to everything. Now, if I should fast forward again, now, you're talking about the 386 computers. Today, we're talking about Windows 11. It cannot run on 386.
We even had punch cards at one point.
Exactly. Punch card, performance, and what have you. Now, today, we're talking about Core i. I'm using a Dell computer. It is Core i. So what are the changes? The changes are the number of transistors, because the basic building blocks are the transistors.
Yes.
So what is that big deal? That big deal is that from 386 to Core i9, we're able to pack more transistors within a
In a
limited
smaller
state.
space.
What made it possible is what they call the process technology. Vivian, today we're talking about 3 nanometer process technology. All
yes.
this is hardware.
Yes.
All this is chip design. And these are areas that Nigeria has to build capacity in chip architects. We don't have to have foundry here. We can have fabless companies, as most companies in the West have.
Exactly.
When you design here, you push it to the fabs. Maybe TCMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
The company that's in Taiwan. The people that are working with NVIDIA. Without them, NVIDIA is nothing.
And that is why there can be no war in Taiwan. I bet you Americans will do everything.
You just took it out of my mind.
To make it to be there because it's a strategic technology that drives the whole world.
But there's also another thing. Do you know they develop those chips, right?
Yeah.
But the company that develops the machines to develop those chips is in Ireland.
Okay.
AMD.
Okay.
ASMD, or what's it called?
Okay.
So those people are also big players in this whole AI race because they are one of the biggest, if not the sole manufacturers of those machines.
Yes.
That's
TSMC. All these lithographic machines and what have you. I agree. So that underlines when you talk of how do I put it now, IP. IP is very key. IP is intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
So those designers own the IP, and that is where we have to build capacity as a country where we can develop our own blueprint in line with our peculiarities. That is why I believe strongly in what I call technology adaptation. So you do adoption, you do adaptation. Adaptation is where you customize that technology to suit your peculiarities. And not only that, it creates sustainability because it can be manpower to maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, we are still, I'm sorry to say that, we are still technology consumers. So we need to move. There should be a paradigm shift where we have to move from the spirit of consumerism to the spirit of
and one of the main reasons
you
actually said that in just a few minutes ago, and that is one of the things I point to. Like one of my guests that came here, we were having this argument. He was talking about, we don't have the skills, the skill set. I say no. Most of the things that limit, driving technology in this country from moving from this consumerism standpoint is that we have the baseline, we have the software, we have the skills, but you see these underlying things that you said AI needs to run. The cloud compute, especially, the algorithms and the, whatever, and the data is another thing. Then that compute, those foundational things need to be there. Actually highlighted it on that display before we can actually move to where we're supposed to be.
Very, very important. And then that is where the IoT comes in, because IoT is actually about data acquisition. Or we'll call it, and now I can put it data generation. So how do I make sure that the source of the data is reliable before I feed it into an AI system for data analytics and so on and so forth? So that makes it very strategic. And the source of data must be a non-emotional source. So it cannot be a human being, because human beings could be biased. They have the unbiased source. And that is where the IoT comes in. I can acquire data. It can be your climate data, whatever data I want. They can acquire it the way it is and push it for further processing. Absolutely, yes.
Okay, wow. You are a strong proponent of open source technology. How can open source solutions actually bridge gaps between technology and government processes?
Okay, before I answer that question, let me lay a little bit of a foundation, okay? There's what they call freeware.
Freeware.
Yeah, there's what they call FOSS, FOSS.
Interesting.
That's FOS means free open source software. And then there's what they call, paid one, open source. So let me mention it. Let me just decipher for our audience that may not understand what is called open source, because I believe that this very wonderful program, Tech Vision by Vivian, is something that everybody should actually watch.
Yes.
Okay? Now, there's what we call software. Software is actually a way you communicate with maybe chips like microcontroller, microprocessor. Now, before software is developed, it goes into various stages, okay? Then we have what they call the human readable part. Then it is broken down to what we call the machine readable part. That's what they call the machine code. For the machine code, it goes to binary. Everything today about computer science is about zeros and ones. However, there's a caveat. There's what we call the third state. It's in the middle. It is neither 0 nor 1. But That's for another day. But for basic understanding,
Okay.
it's about 0 and 1.
Okay, is that not going to quantum computing kind of?
Well, to some extent, there's what we call Z state in electronics, what they call high impedance.
Because quantum computers,
High
I heard
impedance.
you can't get the state is neither in 0 and 1.
Exactly.
That's like the basis
There's
of
what they call
quantum
a principle of
computing.
superposition, where things keep changing and so on and so forth.
Yes.
And that is why today, when you're talking about cryptography, again, sorry to digress. Nigeria has to look into quantum computing, especially NIDA. NIDA is high time.
Nobody is even talking about it.
Because with quantum computing, you can break any encryption. Very, very fast. So they have to look into that, looking how we can harness the technology, take the part that favors us, not what America is doing have to do. No. Look at your challenges, your peculiarity, and see that component of any technology we can bring in to help you. Because most of the time, we can't get more than we need. We drop here. By the time we need them, it's already an obsolete technology. So we have to be very, very careful, when it comes to that. Okay. So let me continue with the open source. So the source code is actually those languages that are readable by human being. If I'm programming maybe in BASIC, maybe Python programming today, React, or maybe even HTML and your PHP.
Yes.
These are the human readable part that one or two people could read. So that's what we call the source code. So in essence, the source code is the blueprint of any software. Meaning that if you understand that blueprint, that means you're able to change one or two things in that software. However, there's a problem. So that means that if I make my blueprint, or my architectural drawing of my software open, that means people could steal it and sell it. That means people could know my secrets. That is on one aspect, people don't try to open up that very blueprint or their source code. They cover it up so you wouldn't know. Windows operating system has a source code, but Microsoft will not let you know it definitely.
Yes.
While Linux, most of us about Linux, what they call distros have the Debian, Linux Debian, you have Ubuntu, you have Fedora, and so on. All these are open source. So open source means that you can actually see the code and edit it. And see. And Vivian, why is very, very important? Today, where security is of high importance, there's what we call undocumented features in technology. These are the features you don't know is existing. Windows OS is locked. But do you know what Microsoft has put in behind the scene that me and you wouldn't know? When they say 1 or 2 codes, it bypasses your password and everything and sends information to them. So that is one of the disadvantage of locked softwares and the advantage of open source. Because with open source, the source code is open that you can do what they call digital forensics on them and see where is the Trojan, where is the malware and so on and so forth. Okay. And again, Vivian, with the open source now, with the source code especially, that means you can do what they call adaptation. You can tweak some of the application to suit certain government processes. And most importantly, the cost of ownership. Today, we're talking about bridging diversity gap. We're talking about digital inclusion. I wouldn't know, Vivian, in your village, I may put that run around with a laptop or desktop.
Very minimal percentage.
Absolutely. And now with the current rate of dollar, let me just not talk about that. Okay. So what the open source does for you is, it lowers the cost of ownership. Things like your open office. Most people do pirated Microsoft Office.
Because
but to have open office, which is open source, which you
like
can
Libra.
download that use. Exactly.
Libra, yeah.
Yes. Again, today, website is very key. Website is what portrays your activities. Website helps drive what they call e-government services. Website helps drive what they call digital transformation. Now, you must have heard, for a website to be developed, there's what they call a CMS. A CMS is content management system, meaning that it helps a non-technical people to be able to push contents online.
Yes.
For example, with a CMS system, I can give my secretary access. My secretary can just type in maybe news update.
Yes.
She must not know the programming and push it. Now, one of the underlying technology or project for this is what they call Drupal.
It's open Drupal, source as well?
Yeah, it's an open source. Then it just went off my head though. I used it to my website. Very popular. Gosh, come on. It just went off my head, really. So there are a lot of all these are open source,
yes,
which is used. I'll see remember.
It's very popular. It, or if you know what
it's even more popular than Drupal. It just went off my head now. Very popular.
But what does Drupal do though? What's Drupal?
No, it's a CMS. Okay, it's a content management system that lets non-technical people to be able to, make adjustment to the website, can upload pictures there.
Oh, okay.
You can write what they call the content, everything, without having to call the web programmer. Because
so
the
for
difference
our
between
viewers, it's things like Wix and all that. So this self-building, drag and drop situations.
Exactly, something like that. Yes, drag and drop. It makes it easier. All these are open source. So without them, I wouldn't know how most people will be managing to update their website.
Exactly.
Now, there's what they call the ODK, Open Data Kits as well. These are tools that are used for data gathering or surveys when it comes to humanitarian development or global development. So they're quite, a lot of WordPress. It just got to my mind.
Okay.
The other one is WordPress. Very, very important. Because I was raising, how come I'm not getting this? Yeah, so all these are open form platforms that lets you build your website. It helps you automate the processes and so on and so forth. So they are very, very strategic. And finally, Vivian, cost of ownership of devices is very, very key. What open source does that it drops down the cost of, devices. Yeah. Example is Android. The Android OS came in and crashed the cost of telephones, sent people like Nokia packing. So many of them.
Okay.
Nokia was in the Symbian OS. The Android came and made phones cheaper. So most people now can actually have phones on their hands
because of the
it's
open
very
source.
Okay. So why I'm mentioning this is that if you check the cost of, Windows-based hardwares, systems, they are quite beyond the reach, especially now that things are difficult. However, if we look in as a country towards open source, okay, we could have some hardwares that are very cost-effective that could help us achieve the same thing that we achieve with paid.
Okay.
Yeah. Example is your Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi falls under what they call the SBC. SBC is single board computers.
Raspberry Pi is a system.
Yeah, it's a board, just a small board like a credit card size.
Yes.
Raspberry Pi is those boards that help drive open source technology. So you can install your Linux
or your Ubuntu
kernel. Linux tech kernel. It's like the nucleus. Nucleus. So you can apply it to Raspbian. You can apply it to Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian. All we run on that small, but that is less than $100.
So that would
full option.
Yeah.
That is less than what they sell Raspberry Pi for now. I think maybe a micro scale or Hub 360 is about maybe 70,000-80,000.
So what I'm getting is
that you get a full computing platform that you can plug it to any TV. That's the beauty of it. You can plug it to a HDMI.
So you won't need to have a full to a screen.
That is the beauty, but we are not propagating that. And I think that is where NIDA is failing some of these things. We should put open source to the forefront. We shouldn't be advertising for Microsoft. That is where adaptation comes in. Let's look at our challenges and have a way to solve this. Just the way Indians are doing, Chinese people are doing it. So let's push for this. I'm not a marketer for Raspberry Pi. I'm not a TD for Power, developing our own SBC based on all-winner chip called A20, 4-layer. Maybe before this year goes out, we'll come and launch it. Also, single board computer. But what it does for you is that it lowers the cost of ownership because your normal TV can be turned to a computer monitor. Keyboards are very cheap. Mouse is very cheap. You plug it in now, have your SD card, your micro SD card, you load the operating system, everything, download your open office, all these applications, and you're flying, you're computing.
You're computing already.
The same can be used for the servers as well.
It never occurred to me, you just...
Very, very important.
It never occurred to me how open source can actually drive down the price of your hardware.
Absolutely,
You just...
A place like Ukraine, let me use the word former Soviet Union. Ukraine used to be part of former Soviet Union, which actually left Nigeria. I still met it as Soviet Union then. So if you check, most of the big companies, they ride on Linux right from time. It's becoming a big popular and what have you.
Yeah.
So Linux pays a lot. So let's teach people Ubuntu. Why must it be Windows? No, let's diversify for goodness sake. Can't put all your eggs in one basket.
But most of the problem is, I think, what about the security aspect?
I just mentioned it already. These are open source. The source code are out there for you to examine. I don't have Windows source code. I don't know what Bill Gates has done in Windows. I don't know the documented features there because it is locked. I don't have access to it. The same thing goes with some of these cybersecurity products we are using here. We're using Huawei products. We are using Cisco products. Most of them, they have closed, and
they have a doorway of getting
they have
your data.
Their closed encryption or closed cryptography. That means they have their closed cryptography in it. So there's a company now that wants to work with us. I wouldn't want to call names, okay? Yeah. So this company today, they will manufacture what they call open architecture cybersecurity devices that you will put your own cryptography
If it
in it.
inside.
You lock it, you know that nobody is doing something behind.
Collecting
And
your
Nigeria
data.
should start looking in that very area because
Wow.
in international politics, I think I've said this several times, right? There's no permanent ally and no
No
permanent
permanent
enemy.
enemy.
So you must take care of your security,
your own-
especially
Your
with
citizens'
our
data.
defense system. We are fighting insurgency. How do we know who are the supporters? You don't know who are supporting these people behind the scene. So that is why you must take care of your security, because the same people selling these products to you can be the same people supporting these people.
Supporting and
So
getting
if you
info.
don't have those cryptography with all they call open architecture, where you pour in your own security measures, architecture, you know there's nothing there. Fantastic. You know, and again, anyway, let me not go into politics now, because I believe strongly that I think I have to mention this for the sake of Nigeria. For the sake of Nigeria, I believe that the next election that should be held, okay, this is an advice as a professional coming out from ITDA.
Yeah.
The next election that should be held to avoid a situation that could put the existence of Nigeria under question mark, where people may feel that it's rigged or not rigged. I believe that if it is transparent enough at the ab initio, people will take the result, objectively.
Objectively.
Every application that is involved with the voting system, each party must bring its own forensic expert, digital expert, where some of these codes will be examined by each of the petty
and make
agents.
sure there's no foul
Then
play.
it is locked. Very, very important. Beat your front end, beat your back end, beat whatever, up to the firmware that runs on the devices. The car reader has a firmware running that. Bring out the code. Is Nigerian, bring out the source code. Each party should have its own forensic experts to examine it. Very, very important. When this is done, then people will be at peace.
Yeah.
And secondly, there should be redundancy in streaming of election results. Not only one part, each party should have access of just viewing it on their own if possible, or having multiple redundancies. Thank you very much.
Yes. Wow. In fact, you just basically answered my next question, which is providing examples of, open source projects that can, that can work in the government. But do you know any open source project now that is currently being implemented? Right now, you just mentioned what is possible. Like, can you name one or two that is being implemented right now? Any open source technology that at least the government is even using at this point? Well,
there's a project we are working now. It was based on our presentation we made to NISRIA. NISRIA is under the Ministry of Environment. That's Nigerian Environmental Standards.
NISRIA, okay.
Regulatory something agency.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, they monitor the emission. So all these industries around, they monitor the emission level.
CO2.
Yeah. Then with the oil and gas industry too, they monitor if they are, adhering to the standard operating procedure, where you don't have to do this. So some of the operations are still analog, not digital. So with the previous CEO there, we had an agreement, an understanding. We are supposed to jointly come up with an IoT device that will do what we call real-time environmental monitoring system, solar powered. What does it mean? It means that we can go to a place like let me not call company names, some of these manufacturers, and install the device there in a network of sensors. So to check your sulfur dioxide emission, nitrogen oxide emission, carbon monoxide, and all this data could be streamed straight to a platform anybody can see. That was the idea. That's a democratization of data. So there's nothing to hide. So if I'm living here, before I leave, I have an application with a GIS platform, that geographic information system. That's where the map is.
Yes.
So I can see the concentration of sulfur dioxide and know where it is coming from. So these are some of the projects we as TD4PI, not as NIDA, we as a technology development for poverty alleviation initiative, we are working on. I feel that the government should also take that steps, especially in monitoring things to do with oil spillage. Why are we cleaning up Ogoni land today? Where were people when this spillage was accumulated? What happened? There was a cover-up. So how do you create more transparency when it comes to that? It's by using certain technology, which we, as a hub, TD4PI hub, will be very happy to provide it to the government, even as a pilot, definitely. We can deploy sensors in those oil areas, especially the remote area, that can monitor hydrocarbon gases. The moment it senses these gases, it takes the location, takes the concentration and gas type, and pushes to a central dashboard. Nobody can hide it. And then with API, you can democratize that data for ordinary citizens to actually see what is happening in the environment. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, talking of open source now, you are one of the people that are pioneering indigenous open source projects. So I know it's still a small space. There are lots of people. What are the challenges as somebody in that space, as implementing indigenous open source project, what are the challenges you faced?
Okay, let me even put it this way. What are the challenges in implementing indigenous technology, indigenous solutions? Let me make it even broader.
Even broader, yes.
You see, the first challenge is that, okay, we still have, we're still a technology consuming nation. We have to tell ourselves the truth. We're still consuming technology. We're not developing yet. So that consumption is still there.
It's still there.
And it is so endemic and systemic already that it's difficult to tell somebody using Windows that, please, leave this Windows. TD4PA has developed a single board computer. It is running Linux. This Linux, you can actually see the code with your IT experts that there's no malware or whatever. That is number one. The number two is that, the government has tried, with the Startup Act, which is under NIDA as a secretariat now. I think they've actually...
Has it been enacted?
It's been enacted. It has been passed from bill and it is already act.
Okay.
So it is a very, very bold step in the right direction. That will help also drive indigenous technology. Why? Because R&D, for example, is very expensive. Most multinationals put 13% of their annual turnover on R&D. Of course. It's either you innovate or you die. That's it. And what drives innovation is research and development. Especially when it comes to upstream ICT, hardware. So all the hubs like TD4PA, I know how much I personally spend. I fund the hub from my pocket.
Wow.
I buy transistors, I buy this, I make the bus from China, what they call the bare bus. We did the design, but just the bare board that comes with no components is what comes to the hub. And we have to do the population, board bring up, program of the chip, QC, and so on and so on. It's very, very expensive. So if you don't have a funding mechanism, it's a problem.
It's a problem.
Now, the second layer now is with the Startup Act now, they've done what they call there's what they call whitelisting of startups. How do you define a startup? Who qualifies?
As a startup.
I think NIDA in collaboration with CPN, Computer Professionals Registration Council of Nigeria, is part of the team, whitelisting startups or what have you. What that translates to is that as a startup, some of the government regulations with respect for contract bidding, you must have your 3-year task clearance, you must have that. Those things are waved away for the startups.
So really?
So they can easily bid for technologies, bid for
with
projects.
Little restrictions.
And have that needed capital, that working capital they need to move on to the next stage of their development is gotten. Because in Nigeria today, the VC ecosystem is not right. That's what you call the venture capital.
Venture capital is not right.
I can't go to the bank with that and get money. No, they will
most
tell me
of the startups are being funded by foreign VCs.
Yes. There's plus to that and there's minus, which I'll come to later if we can get there. So for me is that, the government is taking the right step in the right direction. And then I must commend our able minister, Dr. Bosu.
Oh, yes.
I mean, to me, he's actually putting the right person in the right place.
In the right place.
It's one of the greatest things this administration has done. Dr. Bosu and also David Omahi, an engineer, Ministry of Works. You see the magic they're doing?
Yes.
Bosu too.
Especially Dr. Bosu.
Was the founder of CC Hub.
Do you know I found that recently? I didn't even know he was the founder of CC Hub.
That is why things are moving.
I'm like, no wonder.
Exactly. So what he did, what really made me so happy, because I thought I was criticizing him that his policy. Nigeria will have so many challenges.
Get to work.
IT is a pervasive technology, is an enabler. What problem has a ministry midwifed a solution to solve? Is it insurgency? Is it armed robbery?
Like a major solution.
We should come up with solution. This is what they're looking after. But then he did something that changed my mind a bit. And that is the startup, the Nigerian house in California. Startup
house, yes. I heard about that.
I never knew how such a building over the years.
Same,
so you're bringing us to the forefront of innovation, bringing us
to the main place,
to the arena. That's what they call the players' arena.
To the middle of the whole thing.
I must commend him for that, even coming up with such idea. That will help because visibility is needed so much. I have in the hub people that do a lot of outsourcing. In the hub, people work in the hub like co-workers. They make a lot of money from outsourcing of some software modules and so on and so forth. So with that over there, that will open, the floodgates.
The floodgates
for Nigerian, startups to get along with. That alone, if it's only
and it can help this VC issue. It can help create that.
The local ones are not too strong, and some of the local ones are intermediaries.
It can help create that VC ecosystem you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. But when you have direct link, they can see more, they can pump in more money. Nigeria is still leading in Africa when it comes to investment in some of these technologies by VCs. But still, consider our population. Let's not get deceived. We should be even higher.
Higher than
Instead
that.
of 300 million, I think Ghana is about 26 million or so. So we should actually get higher over there. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, like, how do you think Nigeria can prepare its government infrastructure to integrate these emerging technologies we're talking about? We've mentioned some of the issues, like the lack of compute and all that. Like, how do you think we can address all these challenges? The major infrastructure that we need to drive all these technologies that can help government processes.
Okay, fine. The first, skills. That is number one. Don't even go further. One is skills. You need to upskill and reskill your workforce. Why? Because we're talking of fourth industrial revolution, where technology is dynamic, automation, disruption is happening at the speed of light. So what happens is that, as you roll out graduates, your workforce, they're not meeting up with those new knowledge compared to the old one they have. So your job is that you have to future-proof, I like using the word future-proof your workforce by reskilling them. Bringing in some of them, training them in IoT, training them in big data analysis, training them in cybersecurity and so they can understand that this is the trajectory the world is going. That's number one.
Yeah.
Because if you don't build the skills, even the new applications you're bringing in, they cannot fit it, they can't use it. So it's of no use bringing a solution that nobody can use.
So it's
very, very important.
Yeah.
Then secondly, now for your workforce, it makes them to be not just spectators, it makes them to be players when it comes to these emerging technology. So you have to train them in those areas that they can become players, get work from outside through outsourcing, and also work for other people and so on and so forth. The number two is what they call digital infrastructure. Everything today is smart and connected. Smart and connected. Yes. Everything today is data. We're told you are in the data era, data economy. Yes. So the big question is how do you acquire, how do you transmit data, how do you process it? All this requires infrastructure. You need a robust communication platform. We're talking of your cellular network today when you talk of maybe terrestrial IoT. We're talking of your satellite, maybe VSAT connection. Talking of your fiber and other means. So this must be there.
Must be there.
Connectivity must be there. Access to internet must be there. Very, very important. The other part now is their digital platform, things like your data center.
Yeah.
Data centers are very key. Today, we have de facto government data center, Galaxy Backbone. We have a Min1 data center, we have Rack Center, we have AfriOne, we have many of them. So this has to be promoted. The government has to make sure that this infrastructure are supported as much as they can. Because I know for them to maintain the 999, they pay a lot. Tier 1, Tier 2, they pay a lot because the running cost is high due to diesel. So the government will come up with incentives as encouragement to some of these data centers, to help them buffer the operational cost so that they can still be existent. I'll give a typical example. IoT is about data acquisition. The big question is that when you acquire data, where do you host it?
Exactly.
Where is the repository? So that's the strategic nature because I cannot have a server in my facility that is serving outside. Because I need to run my chain 24 hours. I don't have such muscle. The data
capacity.
center offers that by creating a complete platform where you can virtualize and they create your virtual servers and take it out, and do whatever you have to do. These are very, very key points. Of course, I would have mentioned things like regulations. Regulations are very, very important where maybe introduce certain, how do I put it now, encouraging regulations that will help push some of these things.
Especially the importation of most of these materials we use for this.
For me, I believe that the government should have zero import duty, zero VAT when it comes to renewable energy system.
Yeah.
Because we mentioned all this baby technology, but the major stakeholder here, is energy. When there's no energy system, no power, these things will not work.
Will not work. You understand?
So first of all, let's build this foundation. Let's come up with many strategic initiatives. For example, we have the ministry. Okay, the ministry. What's it called? The parastatal ministry there. So why can't we turn the whole rooftop of ministry to a solar farm? Why can't you put it as a law? Just the way you must roof a building, you must also install renewable energy system in the building. If you have X amount of people, multiply by the kilowatt hour, let it serve us. Because let me be honest with you, with the high insolation we have in Nigeria, the mains or the grid should be just like a backup.
Yeah.
Why? Because the cost of solar cells are coming down. Right now, 1 watt of solar cell is less than 20 cents. It's coming
down, really.
The cost of lithium-ion batteries are
coming down. But why are they
down.
still so expensive over here?
Well,
the
again,
main,
I
yeah.
wouldn't know how much the government charges for custom
Okay,
duty.
custom
That was what I was
duty.
saying. They
Okay, I
should
think
remove all this
that is where
completely.
the cost is coming
At
from.
least for solar panels, remove
Yes.
everything. Then for the battery, yes, we don't want to actually, kill the local manufacturers.
Yes.
If we don't have local manufacturers, I heard that Nasarawa State is mining lithium. I hope we're not exporting it as a raw material. I hope there are plans where we have some value extraction from these things. I hope there are some companies, local companies, talking with their Chinese companies to make the batteries onshore in Nigeria. Not extracting raw material because there's zero, they laugh at you, zero value.
Zero value.
So if this is done, that will further bring down the cost of ownership of these energy systems. Then we can deploy it in-house. There's a project we're working in TD4Pi. It is called Energy as a Service, where we are lowering the cost of ownership, and then we'll try to push it to houses on 12-volt basis. We're not using 48-volt batteries, many batteries, just one battery. Where through IoT, we can switch you off, we can switch you on, we can see your utilization of the power and so on and so forth, targeting the rural areas. Because most people in rural areas, they don't use heavy equipment. Maybe one fridge, if they're lucky, 2 or 3 things. So if you put like 2-3 kilowatt, is enough for them to get power. Then for schools too, students can read, do assignments. Hospital too can use it, especially our primary health care facilities. I don't know how much visibility Ministry of Health has in such places that vary. But with energy system, they can communicate, they can do a lot of work. So the energy is very, very key. And that is when Nasini has to look at, and also the Energy Commission of Nigeria. We can partner with them, TD4Pi Hub, to come up some local solutions that are very, very cost effective that can deploy there nationwide.
Yes, before we started, you were talking about this smart bin technology. Yes. Please, I want you to talk about that because it was, very interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Now, one of the SDGs is what they call water and sanitation. Waste management is a big problem all over the world. And one of the greatest threats to Nigeria today is actually what they call the e-waste, the so-called Tokimba computers.
Yes. I
want all of us to understand that a standard computer motherboard, which most of us have seen, or the TV boards, most of them are in green colors. They will have red or other colors. They contain heavy metal. They contain lead. They contain cadmium. They contain copper. So the big question is that all your old Windows 8 computers, where are they today? Let's be asking ourselves, what happened to all those computers? Where are they? Most of them are in a dump. And this enters the soil.
Yes.
You eat whatever is planted, or water will take it to, whatever. It's not having cancer. You'll be wondering what's happening. Now, the waste management system is a very, very big challenge. Okay, look at what is happening in Abuja. Yeah, the current administration is doing a lot. Wike is actually doing a lot to change the narrative. Yes. I have to commend him. My governor also, Dr. Peter Amba in Enugu State, is doing a lot. However, we cannot keep doing things the analog way, manual way. So what we're doing in TD4Pi is that, okay, we're making beans to be smart and connected, meaning that your bean can speak to you, you can speak back to the bean. So we are creating what you call DAQ bean, DAQ bean. DAQ is the acronym for data acquisition bean. Meaning that your bean now can sense its level of fuel.
And report that
and report to the disposal company. It can sense when there's fire in it and report itself. It can sense if it has fallen. This is what they call babambola. They come to pick things. Sometimes they fall it. It can report. Most importantly, if there's a relocation of the bean from point A to point B, it tells you where it is located.
Wow.
And most importantly now, we're talking about climate action. It can also do what they call microclimate data acquisition. It can take the quality of your air at the same time, humidity, everything. This can be pushed to the climate people to monitor the changes. So that's what we are working on now. And the beauty of it is that you the government that is engaging the waste disposal companies, you can actually see their performance. And Vivian, we're introducing something very, very new that we cut down corruption and create transparency. We are plugging this to a smart contract system driven by blockchain. Meaning that
same being.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So everything is data. All the whole data is pushed to a central dashboard. So with that dashboard, how about they call the KPIs and the matrices?
Yeah.
Which maybe Abuja Environmental will give to us, or the Enugu SWAMA. I think Enugu is called SWAMA is giving to us. All this to plug to our smart contract system. So based on your performance, how many times I've emptied the bin, how long it took you to empty the bin, all this is pushed as a metric. The smart contract system pays you. You don't have a human being to settle.
So much data.
Everything comes out clean. And again, Vivian, we're also looking at what they call pay as you throw. Okay? Pay as you throw. I use this plaza as an example. Okay, this is a 4-story plaza. It has one big bin. So why must I pay when I have not disposed a home? I've not thrown anything.
Just have this space.
So the same bin now, we're creating smart bins, what they call with special bin enclosures. Meaning that any bin you have, no problem, we'll just put our own device on top of it. Now, each time you come to dispose, you use your smart card to open up the bin, you dispose. It checks your volume, it checks the weight, charges you.
Based on it.
Exactly. So call it pay as you throw. It's still under development. We'll be happy to partner with whoever is interested, including you, Vivian, please.
Wow. Yes. Amazing. Yes. So as we conclude, any final thoughts or messages you'd like to share with our listeners, particularly those interested in, leveraging this technology for effective governance, any stakeholders that are that would really, gain from most of this technology that you've shared with us.
Yeah.
Last words. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you have to understand is that it's what we call digital sovereignty. As long as you're a technology consumer, you don't have it. And adaptation of technology is very, very key for sustainability. And when you do adaptation, that is when you create what they call technical mentorship for transfer of technology. Exactly the model we're using at TD for IoT Hub. This is very, very important. And why I'm saying this is because the underlying factor is skill set. Skills is number one. We must upskill and reskill our workforce. We must engage in what they call the CATI program. CATI is Catch Them Young.
Yeah.
From nursery school, let's start training kids in digital technologies. Very, very important. Let's retrain our workforce. Let me be honest with you. Our population can be turned to an asset. But right now, it's like a potential liability. And how you can do that is by infusion of emerging knowledge in our population. India earns more than Nigeria in oil. Most of the big tech companies in the whole world are headed by India. Ask yourself why. Because they had a robust they built a foundation for assimilation of digital technology. They have it as a program over the years. And today it has paid them off. It's the foremost destination for outsourcing, name it. So we need to borrow that. Not only borrow, you need to adapt it. It's not to borrow blindly, no way. Adaptation is very, very important. We must build those skill sets. Then the third one is that patronize your product, no matter how crude. Patronize it. The government should learn how to break the ice. Patronize it. Very, very important. When we patronize it, they have enough money to go to the next stage, no matter how crude. That was how Japan was about to rise after the World War. Russia, the same thing, and so on and so forth. So why are we using so many vehicles? National Assembly spent X amount of money for senators. Why are we not patronizing our local, Innocent and other local manufacturers? Charity begins at home. We have to preach. We have to practice what to preach. These are the core things I have to say. And then support innovation hubs. Very, very important.
Very, very important.
Then I have to commend the current minister, Dr. Bosu Tijani.
Yes.
But I have to also advise him. Honorable Minister, try to tour other rural hubs. How many rural hubs are we promoting in Nigeria? In the spirit of diversity, bridging diversity, inclusion. Must all the hubs be in the built-up area? So we need to promote hubs to the grassroots, because that's the engine room of technology, which is one of the community hubs. So you are welcome to visit us one of these days as well. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Agu. It's really been a pleasure, having someone who's not just a, enthusiast or a supporter of indigenous technology, but somebody who is a boots on the ground practitioner. Absolutely. So it's been amazing. And I myself have learned a lot today.
Thank you,
and I'm sure my viewers as well. So, until next time, please, look out for our next episode and keep innovating and keep being inspired. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivian, for having me. Thank you.